going on, everybody? Welcome to Brutal Planet Comics. I'm your host, Dre, the Brute Daniels. Oh, it's another glorious day. It's another episode of the Indie Corner, where I sit down with everybody from the MPC community, writers, artists, directors, producers. Doesn't matter if you're in the game, I want to talk to you. And we have ourselves a very special guest, and it's insane that he's just getting into my channel right now. He is the creator of the Shameless Plug. Give it up, everybody, for Jorge Medina.
What's up, everyone? Yeah, Dre, amazing that I have not been able to sit down with you and talk shop, bro. But thank you so much for having me on, and I appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
We had to rectify these inequities.
Yes. But
indeed. It's good to have you on the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm well, man. I'm well, excited. You know what I mean? You know how it is, the life of an indie creator. You know, we have new projects that we put out, and we want to, you know, like we talked about it in the green room, pimp them out.
That's right.
Get them out there and get people to know what we're doing. So this is what I'm doing here today.
Full-blown prostitution. That's just the way it goes. But before we get into all the great stuff that you're cooking up right now, like, my audience may not know all the good stuff that you've been into. So who are you? Where'd you come from? And how did we get here?
Yeah, so my name is obviously Jorge Medina. I started my own small imprint called Get Your Meds, Meds with a Z, Get Your Meds. And it's a play on my last name, Medina, Meds. I want you to get my meds are my comics. I want you to get hooked on those things, and I want you to pick them up. So I started doing this, man. I mean, I've been doing this, everybody says it, since I was a kid. You know, I've always wanted to create my own stories. And that's exactly how it's been for me, right? I've always wanted to create my own stories. Obviously, I'm old. So I grew up back in the 80s. And I grew up watching cartoons like, you know, the Thundercats and G.I. Joe and Voltron and Transformers and all those things. And I always loved those cartoons, but I never wanted to write or create for those cartoons. I wanted to create my own stories. I wanted to see my own stuff up on the screen, you know, and make it cartoons. I've always wanted to make cartoons. So, you know, obviously animation would have been the way to go. I wasn't the best artist.
I hear that.
So I decided, let me be a writer, right? Let's write, right? That's what we do. So I started writing my own stories, and then the animation thing went to the side. I started, you know, why don't I start doing comics? Let me go the comics route, the comic book route. And that's what I did. So I went to the School of Visual Arts back in 2003. Oh, wow. I was taking like classes, like, I wasn't enrolled in the school. I was taking like I guess it was like a summer class I was taking. Sure. And I met a buddy of mine who his name is Sam Vera. Big shout out to him. We do a podcast called
Sam, of course.
Yeah. So I met him there, and he had a company called Crazy Comics, and he was like, hey, dude. At the time, I had a book called Rust 5377, which I'm still publishing it today through ASAP Imagination. Big shout out to Hades and everybody over there at ASAP Imagination. If you want to pick up that book, you can pick it up on their website. But yeah, so I started with that book, and he's like, yo, dude, I have an independent publishing company called, you know, Crazy Comics. Do you want to get down? I'm like, yeah, dude, sure. And at the time, I was writing and drawing my book, the Rust 5377, and so I started publishing through him, and that's where I kind of started. That's where it began. Nice, and that's pretty cool that you have a buddy that you team up with in order to make something like that happen. But that's pretty darn cool. So so you had that first issue run, and you said that it's still available, which is tremendous. Go pick it up, everybody. Go pick it up. What was the inspiration behind you getting into the industry itself? Now, you touched on a little bit about, like, we all came from, like, you know, we all have the similar backgrounds, nerddom and childhood and things like that. But what made you really want to jump into the industry? Was it just like the idea of just being creative, or was it like something that you thought you just really could run with? It's funny because I never thought of it as me coming into an industry, right? When I started doing this, I thought of it as a way to get my stories out of my head, onto a piece of paper, and in somebody's hands, right? I never looked at it as industry. It wasn't until, like I mentioned, meeting Sam that I discovered, because at the time I was folding up the pieces of paper in like 8.5 by 11, folding it in half, drawing right on it. Yeah. I didn't really write scripts, you know what I mean? I was drawing and putting the stories together as I went along. There really was no like method to my madness other than I have a story in my head. I'm gonna draw it. I'm gonna put it on a piece of paper and I'm gonna do it. So that's how I started doing it. It wasn't until I met him that I discovered Photoshop and I discovered 11 by 17, sheets of paper where comic books were actually being drawn on. Like, what? These are 11 by 17 sheets of paper. But how do you make them that small? Oh, you scan them in. That's right. Oh, okay. And this was back this is the early 2000s.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, where people were still scanning things in and digital artwork wasn't a thing.
Was not a thing
physical.
at all.
Yeah, it was all physical, right? So that's when it became a thing of like, oh, now I'm in an industry because now I'm doing comic book conventions. I hadn't gone to comic book conventions before that. You know what I mean? That was my first forte into comic book conventions. The Big Apple Comic Con was something that we did every year once we started back then. So that's how I kind of stepped into it. Yeah, it was that. It was that.
Okay. And that's why I wanted to ask. Because we all come from, like, there's always that one turning point where we go from fans to being in the industry. It's always a turning point somewhere. And I was very interested in where yours was. Very, very cool. That's very, very awesome. So what was the biggest run that you had as far as like in your personal opinion, like your magnum opus of like comics that you have made?
It's funny. When we started, back when I was telling you, right, back then, we were young and we were naive and we thought, yo, dude, our comics are going to sell. So what we did was issue number 1, the one that I drew of Russ 5377, which I still have pages of, and I thought about reprinting those just to have them. Issue 1, the one that I did, that I drew, because I no longer draw, I stopped drawing it. But the one that I did, we printed out 500 copies.
Oh my stars.
Yeah, we printed out 5 thinking, yo, man, this is it. We were about to kill it. We're about to go crazy. So we printed out 500 copies for our first comic book. Now, they didn't all sell, and I'm sure we still have copies somewhere. But, and again, listen, this was back in the day when there was no print on demand. So we knew a guy that kind of worked in some printing shop, and he could give us a couple of prints, under the table. So we would get these big, huge sheets of paper, and we would have to fold them and staple them ourselves. Oh my goodness. So these weren't like what you see now.
No glue binding out here.
none of that. It was all stapled. So that was my biggest print run. As far as like completed comics, I do have to say, so Russ was a 6-issue miniseries, and that was completed. And I pride myself in the fact that it was completed. The Adventures of Wonder Duck, which we'll talk about in a minute, that was an 8-issue miniseries, which I also completed. So I've always I always pride myself in completing the projects because, listen, man, you know this, and as an indie creator, we would love to have these ongoing series that go forever.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Issue 300 would be amazing, right? What Spawn did. But it costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time to be putting out something on a monthly basis. Yes, so I always said, okay, let me tell my story in increments of whether it was, and back in the days it was like 6 issues was like the thing. So let me tell my Russ story in 6 issues and go from there, see what happens. Let me tell my Adventures of Wonder Duck in 8 issues and go from there and see what happens after that. So that's what I've done. I've been able to do that. And accomplishing that, I think as an indie was a big deal for me, and it still is a big deal because at least when I go to conventions, and we talked about this a little bit, people want the whole story.
Yes, they do. Yes,
do you have the full story? It's right here. You can pick it up right here. Issues 1 through 6 are here right now. Issues 1 through 8, they're done. You don't have to wait. You don't have to worry about, is this going to continue? It is done. So yeah, that's helped me a lot, and I think that's been the biggest, like you said, the magnum opus, right? Like it's just completing those stories, completing those issues. Yeah, it's what.
Yeah, and it's very rewarding when you actually can finish a run. Let me tell you that, sweet Lord and mercy. I can't tell how many pilots I have on the crash room floor.
Right. Yeah. And it happens. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned in your answer, let's talk about the Adventures of Wonder Dog before we go into what's coming up to the Shameless Plug. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about Adventures of Wonder Dog. Where did this come from? Where did this idea evolve from? And you said it was an 8-issue run. Let's dive into it a bit.
Yeah, I created the Adventures of Wonder Duck back in like the early '90s. I was a little
Okay.
kid. I loved the Disney afternoon. I used to come home and I used to watch, like I told you, those cartoons that I was telling you about. But my love for cartoons was like DuckTales, Darkwing
Yeah.
Duck, Tailspin, the Disney afternoon,
You did
right?
definitely.
And
Yep.
one of the characters, yeah, and one of the characters that I really that I was like, holy cow, because I was big into like superheroes and stuff like
Of
that,
course.
was Gizmo Duck. Gizmo Duck was like my favorite character in the DuckTales series. It
Yeah.
wasn't Darkwing, it was Gizmo. And so I wanted to create my own Gizmo Duck. And so I decided to take the wheels off of him, give him a cool suit, put him out in space, and I called him Wonder Duck. And so, at the time he was just Wonder Duck. And then as I got, like we talked about getting into the industry, as I discovered what comic books were and how comic books worked, I also discovered copywriting, right?
Oh,
The copyright laws and stuff like that, right?
oh,
So
yeah.
when I went to do a copyright for Wonder Duck, I realized they wouldn't let me do it. So I had to add the adventures of in front of it, and then I can get it done. So Wonder Duck went from just being Wonder Duck to being the adventures of Wonder Duck. And so I was like, okay, if it's the adventures of Wonder Duck, this guy's got to go into some adventures. And so I decided to write an 8-issue kind of run called the Furorian Takeover, and Furorian comes from the name of the planet Führer, which is where Wonder Duck comes from. And the premise basically is, a super battle suit is discharged into space, and it changes the life of a duck who's down on his luck named Duke Dolbeak, and transforms him into Wonder Duck, where he has to save the
It's
planet.
actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's not. I mean, like seeing the origin of where they come from. That Duffy sounds like a Ducktales episode, if it was in anything. So
Right.
that's pretty cool. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
with that, you didn't think maybe this would have been cool as a cartoon, maybe?
Absolutely, dude. So many times. It's something, and even when I started receiving the pages from the artists when they started drawing I was like, holy cow! Like this lends itself to that. But animation is very expensive, and
Yes, it
so I
is.
figured, like, again, let me do this as a comic book and see where it goes and see how I do it. So, that's where I'm at with it. And listen, I would love to see it animated. That would be amazing. But right now, I think the plan is to have the book, see what it does. Obviously, I go to conventions. So if you see me at a convention, I'll have the graphic novels with me. But I'm also doing, and I spoke to you a little earlier, what I'm doing is, and let me just see if I could just show you guys just on the screen here. So I printed out single issues for the first time, and it's actually the first issue will be hitting stores in a couple of weeks.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it'll be hitting stores in a couple of weeks. I think on the 15th, I think we should be getting into stores. So if you haven't yet, if you are near any, you have a local comic book shop, go into the comic book shop, ask for the Adventures of Wonder Duck. They can order it. You can go on my website. They can order it through my distributor and get some copies in the shop. But I'm doing these issues 1 through 8 will be printed out and distributed through to comic book shops for the next 8 months, and we'll go from there. The graphic novel, however, is already completed. So if you guys do catch me at a show, that's the only way you'll be able to get them, is through me at a show. So I have issues 1 through 4 in part 1, and issues 5 through 8 in the part 2.
Awesome.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, right? Like, I still have stories of Wonder Duck that I have in my head. So I've written down more. So there may be more Wonder Duck coming down the pike. I just haven't committed to it just yet. So yeah.
That's I mean, that's you never forget the real first love you had,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, and if it's like, especially if you did an 8-issue run, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of passion that had to go into
Yeah.
into an 8-issue run. And that the concept is fun, and the concept is really cool, and the fact that it's hitting stores is amazing. So that is so
Yeah,
good.
dude.
Getting them in the shops. My Lord Jesus and the Shepherds. That's always the big hurdle. But if you've able to pull it off, that is amazing.
Yeah, dude. I mean, obviously, for those who are in the industry, you guys know what happened to Diamond. And so when that happened, I was very fortunate to get I guess to meet somebody like, his name is Philip Russert. He's the CEO, president, founder of Fillable Distribution. And he took a chance on Wonder Duck. He said, "Look, dude, I like your book, man. It seems like it's just for kids, but it's definitely something that the family can enjoy.
Nice.
Let me pick it up. Let's see what we can do with this thing. And thanks to him, man, the book will be hitting stores. So big shout out to Philip for taking a chance, and Philbo Distribution. Check out the website. All that stuff is on my website. If you guys go to getyourmeds.com, you can check all that stuff out. But I just want to give him a big shout out because that was big, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anytime you're able to make it rain like that, you got to give a shout out.
Yeah,
that's
no
amazing.
doubt.
So that's
Absolutely.
good. So I'm glad that Wonder Dog is taking off. Why do I keep saying dog? It's a duck. What's wrong with me?
There is a Wonder Duck.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. I think that's like
there is.
subconsciously my brain keeps saying it. Duck. Good grief. English is hard. George, English is hard. So yes. So I'm so glad that Wonder Duck is doing so well,
you, man.
and it's actually taking off like that.
Yes,
so now
sir.
that Wonder Duck is in the books and is doing big things, we're going to talk about your next big thing. We're going to talk about the Shameless Plug. Now, the entire style of it, all of it, looks very, very fun, lighthearted, and all that great stuff. So let's get into the origins a bit. Where did the Shameless Plug come from? Now, granted, that's a double entendre, of course, but where did this come from?
I failed to tell you in my origin story.
Uh-oh.
So I was born in Ecuador, and I migrated to the United States when I was 7 years old. And so this story is almost, it's not exactly my life, but it's auto semi-biographical. You know, it's got a little bit of it. And so basically the story follows a young boy named Joaquin, who comes to a brand new country, a brand new school, doesn't really know the language. He's a little goofy looking, he's skinny, he's small, and he doesn't fit in right away. He doesn't fit in. So what happens? He creates this imaginary friend. His name is Pana. He's a plug. He's literally a plug. And the plug teaches him that sometimes to fit in, you have to be yourself. And so we go through this story where Joaquin is just trying to fit in with the other kids, and Pana is going to teach him how to do it. And sometimes it's just as simple as, hey man, just be you, bro. Be you. You're going to be fine.
It's a good lesson. That's a good lesson.
So that's kind of where it goes. And you see the adventure that he goes through. You know, his mom, you know, he comes to the country with his little sister, and his mom, you know, they were separated when he was a young kid. Because, you know, a lot of immigrant parents,
Yes.
sometimes come to the country first, see how things are, and then they send for their kids to come. And that's essentially what happened with me, and that's what's happening with the story here. So it's very personal in that way. And so I speak about how I felt, you know, going through that. So it just gives a voice to kind of like some of the kids, because I think that you got to be pretty brave as a little kid when you're that age, not knowing what's gonna, as when we're growing up, we're looking at the world like, what the hell's going on here? And add that, you know, being in a different country or being in a different culture, something that you're not used to. How does that affect you? So, you know, big shout out to all the little kids who come here the same way, and it's a dedication to them. So I decided to put it together, and yeah, that's the Shameless Plug, man.
That is okay. So first of all, that's amazing. We always write from our experiences. What's the expression? Write what you know. Write what you know. And to see that you're actually putting yourself without being a self-insert is a really, really tough thing to do. Yeah. And I think that's that comes from masterful writing, and so you should be applauded for that off the jump. So we got the inspiration for the Shameless Plug. Why the name? Okay, why the name Shameless Plug? Because it's for the uninitiated. The term shameless plug could also mean I'm promoting something off the jump. I don't care what you think, it's coming at your grits. So, so why the name? I think that's interesting. Where'd that come from?
I was sitting in my car, right? One day, I drive a lot for work, and I was sitting in my car, and literally, the plugs that we use to plug in our iPhones or whatever, the little, just a little plug, just a box, was sitting on my cup holder. And I'm looking at that thing, and I pick it up, and I'm like, man, this would look like a cool, character's head or something. Like this would make for a really cool character. And I talk to people all the time. As creators, as writers, as artists, or whatever, we look at the world through a different lens.
Yes, we do.
Right? Everything and anything can become a story, or is a story, or it's just a story waiting to be told. Right? So when I looked at the plug, I was like, dude, this would be an interesting character, but what would I name it, right? It's a plug. You know what? everybody, and being in the industry, everybody has that shameless plug that they always
100%.
do. I was like, yo, dude, that's the title, the shameless plug. Okay, how do I put that together though? What is the shameless plug? And at first, it was going to be the story of a plug who had a family, and I was going to make the plug, it's anthropomorphic still, but
Yeah,
I
of
was going to
course.
make him in a world of plugs. And I was like, dude, that sounds really complicated, and I don't know that that's what I want to do. And then I thought about, well, okay, well, let me insert myself in this. When I was growing up, what is the one thing that when I was small, I was shy, and I was like, well, what if I wish I would have had more confidence, right? What if I was shameless, like this plug,
Ooh,
right?
that's
What if I wasn't shy and I didn't care? And so that's what he became. I was like, oh my God, he's the shameless plug. This is him. And he's gonna teach this boy how to be shameless in a way and but be yourself. Not in a negative, because shameless
yeah.
has a negative connotation.
Of course it does. Yeah.
Being shameless has a negative connotation.
Yeah.
What if you flip that and make it a positive thing, where you're not necessarily shameless in the way where you're like, it's bad. Shameless in the way where it's like, yo, sometimes you just gotta stop caring as much about what people think. Not to like a bad place, but like enough where you could just be like, hey man, I'm confident enough to know. And that's hard to learn at that age.
Yes.
It's hard to learn at a young age to be that.
Very.
The older we get, the more confident we become through life experiences and things like that. But as a kid, that's tough. But what if, this character became that for Joaquin? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's a nice lesson because
Yeah.
self-confidence, especially at a young age, is very hard to come by. I myself had a problem. I think a lot of people had a problem
Yeah,
with
I think so.
self-confidence, especially that grew up in the era that we came in.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was lucky enough to be into sports, and at the same time, I was also a
Ooh,
nerd. So I still had
dude.
I had levels of protection, if that makes any
Mm-hmm.
sense, because I was still a
Mm-hmm.
sports guy, but I was still like I won't call it ashamed, but it was very hard for me to express myself emotionally because I'm a nerd and I like to I love
Dude.
comic books and cartoons and video games,
Oh,
and I'm gonna sit around and play RTSs on my
yeah.
1995 Windows.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean. And like that was hard to share, and it was really. And I remember on several occasions, like, you do that nerd stuff, you do that weird, like just
Right.
being a nerd was not cool, like
Now
it
it's
is now.
cool.
Yeah,
Not back
now it
then.
is.
Yeah, right, right.
Back then there
Yeah.
were risks.
There were
There were
repercussions.
consequences, repercussions. But yeah, but the teaching that lesson, and I'm just going through a couple of the art pages. I think it's very very important that like I love stories that's for all ages. I always like that. Again, because in my personal opinion, some of the greatest stories that's ever been told have been quote unquote for kids. Has been some of the greatest stories of all time. Like if you rewind the clock a few decades, Batman the Animated Series is hailed as one of the greatest
Sure.
television shows of all time.
Yeah.
X-Men, one of the greatest shows of all time. Spider-Man,
Yeah.
one of the greatest drama shows ever written.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
all these type of things that are for kids were
Right.
definitely the ones that give you the best life lessons. It helps you
Yeah.
cope. I still think about like lessons I learned from those shows 30 years ago. I
Yeah.
still do.
Well, I remember G.I. Joe used to have, and now knowing is half the battle.
Yeah,
G.I.
the
Joe, like
PSAs.
they would have
Yeah.
that. They would and not make it like where it's like the message. It was more of just, hey man, just be a good person or just do the right thing kind
Yeah.
of thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was that. But and to your point, dude, like, all right, say what you want about Disney today.
Sure.
But Disney back in the days with movies like The Lion King, or even when they went into like Finding Nemo, for example, there were lessons there, not just for kids, but for parents. Finding Nemo is a good example of that, right? Finding Nemo
yeah.
was about a fish who wanted to, who was a little fish, but the dad was so afraid of losing him that he would not let him do his own thing.
Exactly.
And the lesson was sometimes you got to let your kids kind of go a little bit so they can become who they are going to become,
100%.
and not try to put them in this bubble where they never get hurt. And that's Finding Nemo, right? And that's a beautiful lesson within that story that's for kids.
Yeah.
But parents learn something from it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of, and there, like to your point, man, there's a lot of that comes from those stories. And I think that's what I gravitated to, and that's what I kind of like write also. Do I like the gritty stuff, and do I like of course, as an older gentleman, of course I'm gonna like all that gritty and hardcore stuff. But as a writer and understanding that, dude, our medium, the comic book medium, is slowly, and as we age, it's dying little by little. So if we can incorporate kids and we can bring kids into it, I know there's video games that we're competing against. I know there's a lot of competition.
Lots.
But at the end of the day, you still have kids still go to libraries, kids still read books. Why not read comics?
Exactly.
It's cool now. Might as well do it, right?
Now it's cool.
Like you said, for us, it wasn't cool. And we still managed to somehow find a way. And to your point, dude, it's funny that you say that about the sports, because there's, within the book, there is going to be, like, part of the big thing is Joaquin has to learn how to fit in. And part of why he's able to fit in a way, is because he does like sports and he is good at sports. And I think that sports, to me, growing up, was that equalizer.
Yes.
Right? It was that equalizer, because I was able to play basketball. I was able to, I could play, growing up in Ecuador, I could play soccer. You know what I'm saying? I had some athleticism in me. So that allowed me to kind of fit in a little bit better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was the equalizer when it came to that kind of stuff. So it's funny that you say that, dude, because it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, and it's truly amazing thing. So, like, first of all, that's amazing. I'm so glad you shared that origin of the Shameless Plug with me. So, we're gonna jump into the Kickstarter just a little bit. So so we're going live tomorrow, and it's going to be amazing. But before I even jump too deep into the Kickstarter, how far you think this run is gonna go for the Shameless Plug? What do you think? Is it gonna be another 8-issue run like our good duck friend, or are we gonna keep it short?
So this story is a little different. I know people are used to, maybe by now, are used to seeing a Kickstarter for a book, and it's like issue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, until it ends or until it keeps going. The way I wrote the book, it's almost a one-shot. Okay. It's 140 pages.
Oh,
and that's the entire story. That is the entire story. The Kickstarter is for the first 40 pages of the book, the first chapter. So that's what the Kickstarter is for. And let me I do have, and for those who are like, what do I take? The book is done. The first 40 pages are done. This is the book. The book is completed. All the pages are in there. You were showing some of the pages. So the first 40 pages of the book are done. So you don't have to worry about, is that guy, wait, what am I pledging to? You're pledging to the first chapter of the book, which is done. Now, anything above the asking goal of 1,000 will go towards the completion of the book, right? And I'm coming out of pocket for it. I'm not, if it's going to come out regardless. Whether I make the goal or not, the book is coming out. So there's no risk there. The 140 pages, I'm hoping to have that done by next year, sometime in April, the latest summer of next year. So what I'm doing on the campaign is, so tell everybody, tell your friends, when you pledge to the campaign, I'm doing a backer goal. Every time I hit 25 backers, it's going to unlock what I like to call a golden ticket.
Ooh.
The golden ticket is somebody's going to win that golden ticket. So what's going to happen is, at the end of the campaign, when it's all said and done, depending on how many 25 backers I unlocked, when I did the Adventures of Wonder Duck, I think I unlocked 5. I'm going to raffle off 5 golden tickets. Okay, that person, whoever gets the golden ticket in their package when this gets delivered to them, that golden ticket allows them to come see me at any convention that I'm at. If you find me at a convention, you're going to get a free copy of the full graphic novel, 140 pages.
I love all of that. First of all, I love Willy Wonka. So let me just get that out the way. I love Willy Wonka. And anything that deals with golden ticket, I'm in. That's so amazing. I like that idea. That's so much fun.
You're gonna get the whole book for free if you're lucky enough to be the person who gets the golden ticket. So and the more 25 a batch of 25 backers I get, the more golden tickets are unlocked. So if I get 100, that's 4. If I get 200, that's 8. You guys do the math. So the more people that pledge to the campaign. And again, this is only for the physical, backers. only because I'll be mailing that out to you in your package. So
makes sense.
For any physical backer who backs the book at the at the physical level, then obviously you'll go into that raffle. So that's something that I'm doing. I also have different covers that I obviously I'm going to be able to provide for you guys. This is let me unlock it. This is one of them here, and this one is a really cool version of the Shameless Plug there.
I like that.
This was done by Chris Mad and Shauna Mad. Big shout out to them. They did the artwork on the book. You have the option to pick up this cover. I also have a virgin cover example of the book with the trade address in the back of the book and everything like that. So it's, like I said, it's 40 pages. It's full color. It's all done. So you guys can pick that up. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited about it.
As you should be.
I can't wait. So
that's gonna be so good. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to it. So everybody, the link to it to the Shameless Plug Kickstarter will be in the description section below. So you definitely check that out and support my main man George. He does great things. He's doing work that anybody can enjoy, young, old, life lessons, all that fun stuff. So definitely go there and support him on that. I am looking forward to it. That joint's going to be dope.
I did want to say also for those who maybe are like Kickstarter, do I have to sign up for this thing? And you maybe don't have it, you don't want to sign up or whatever. You can go to my website and you can pre-order the book as well. So you can always pre-order the book that way. And the only thing is, the only version you'll be getting is the main version. These are only for these will only be on the Kickstarter, but you can always get, if you want to just pre-order the book now, you can just get it on my website. You'll be getting this cover. If you do want the others, then it'll be something that we will do on Kickstarter.
Tremendous. So George, first and foremost, thank you from the bottom of my cold dark heart for coming on my show. Finally, it's so good to actually have you here and hear all your great origins and all that wonderful stuff, man. Thank you so very much.
I appreciate you, Dre. Thank you so much. And listen, man, your book is also fire. I love the concept. So thank you so much. I'm so glad that we got to talk shop and talk about just the process and everything. It's been amazing, man.
Absolutely. Before you go, George, where can folks get not only get their hands on all your great work, but where can they contact you on social media?
Yeah, okay. So definitely go to my website, getyourmeds.com. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at get_your_meds with a Z. You can find me there. You can find me on Facebook. You just Google my name, Jorge Medina, or Get Your Meds. And then you can find me on Twitter. Same thing, Get Your Meds. So I'm all over the place.
And freaking Texas. So everybody, that there is Jorge Medina. Make sure you follow him on all those dope social media platforms and all that great stuff. And of course, who am I? I'm Dre, the Brute Dance. Follow me on my dope social media platforms as well. They'll be right under my face. Not there yet, but there will be. At the Brute00 on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If I feel like being silly, on TikTok. And it wouldn't be my show if I didn't engage in a little bit of full-blown prostitution. Trouble, the Rhythm Within, is still absolutely available in all its forms. There will be a link in the description section below. Definitely check that out, especially if you haven't got your hands on it yet, because Rise of the Children is now currently in production. The long-awaited sequel is finally coming. So definitely check all that good stuff out. So this has been the Indie Corner. You all have been fan-freaking-tastic. I'll catch you all next time.